So a couple of years back, my buddies and I tried to stay in a park after closing time. Our plan was to just take pictures, nothing sinister or anything like that. We just wanted to say we did it, you know? Basically, we snuck from bathroom to bathroom, corner to corner, and managed to stay there until they closed the gates and the maintenance team got to work. We were really surprised why we hadn't, gotten caught. It was almost strange, considering how much talking up Disney security really gets, right? Our hearts were beating like crazy, and we sat there for a while, hiding behind a tombstone by the haunted mansion. We noticed that it's true. The Disney staff had signed their names on every single one. So finally, we got the courage to roam about, still being careful as to not be seen. It was really eerie. The occasional guard or maintenance worker would walk by and we would just duck or hide behind a corner. It worked. For about a half hour. Of course we couldn't keep this thing up for too long, and yeah, they caught us. I mean, give us props for even attempting and succeeding, but that's not where the story ends, no. The first thing we said when we got caught was, "Are you going to take us down to the dungeon?" And we laughed. And the security guard chuckled too, so the mood wasn't too dreary. He told us we weren't the first people to try and sneak in after hours, but he wanted to know how we did it. We explained the situation, and he actually laughed and said that wasn't a bad plan. He told us that we had to take us to the Disney jail to be further interrogated, which we thought was odd. But we figured from the beginning that if we had gotten caught, they'd take us down there. It might have been our plan all along. Maybe we wanted to see the Disney Catacombs more than we wanted to be in the park after hours, really. So we called for more workers to come and help him escort us, and we went on our way, actually, towards Toontown, I believe, yeah. Then they took us down into this elevator. Right into hell. The first thing we noticed was how expensive looking said elevator was. I didn't know if that makes sense, but it's hard to explain. It was like a stainless steel interior with mirrors all around, and the floor was this tacky red carpeting, but it looked expensive. There were only 2 buttons on the elevator, not counting the emergency buttons, one said up and the other said down. I had forgotten to mention that they had never handcuffed us or even zip-tied our hands. They just kind of walked beside us, expecting that we would follow. And not that we would even try to make a run for it. I mean, these people did seem decent. Like how, were we supposed to know what was going to happen? I mean, really? Right? The elevator stopped and we started walking down this perfectly shining, bleach-smelling corridor. There were no doors on either side. It was just a plain, empty corridor. We walked for what seemed like an eternity, and no one was talking any longer. It was me, my friends, the security guard, and the other maintenance workers. Finally, we had reached a heavy metal door that had a security code and card reader. One worker put his card in, the other typed a code on the keypad. I watched the code he typed in, 121566. I only remember it because I found out later what its significance was, and it makes me laugh looking back. Strange. It's strange that I could laugh even looking back. They led me and my friends into another corridor. This one had doors down the hallway and walls. Each door had a little plexiglass square, a 10 by 10 inch window at the top right corner. Sort of like a psych ward, honestly. Not so much like a jail. He led us to room 1901, and inside was a single desk, with surprisingly 3 chairs for me and each of my friends. Then they left us in there alone, closing the door on the way out. We sat in the chairs like obedient little children and waited for them to return, but they never did. 2 hours went by and no one came back for us. My buddy Tim went to the door, and surprisingly it was unlocked. He didn't open it though. He was worried there'd be a guard on the outside and that they'd think we were escaping. And we weren't looking for any more trouble, no. So about 25 minutes went by. When we got restless and finally decided to leave the room, the hallway was empty, like before. No signs of people, nothing. We started calling out, "Hello? Is anybody there?" No one answered our calls. We noticed surveillance cameras were placed above every door, and we got to wondering if there was any living soul in this place at all. We should have left right there and then, but then again, whoever does the right thing in these kind of situations, huh? Every door looked the same, and each one had a specific number above it. They weren't in order like, say, rooms 1 to 10. They were scattered numbers. For example, our room had been 1901, but the door next to it was 1205. So we got to thinking and finally assumed that they were just randomly chosen. We walked up that hallway and had no idea where we were going, what we were hoping to find, or even if any of that even mattered. My other buddy Guy decided we should just leave. He said that if they'd really wanted us here, they'd have come back, and maybe it's just some weird scare tactic. Maybe they just wanted to trick us into thinking we were being arrested, and were waiting for us outside to laugh. I felt weary of the whole situation, and Tim was just quiet the whole time, nodding his head here and there. He was more interested in looking into the door's little 10 by 10 inch windows, and that wasn't a good idea. I tried to tell him, but of course no one ever listens to reason when they're freaked out. And we were definitely freaked the fuck out at this point. The cameras above the doors were capable of motion detection and followed us as we wandered down the desolate corridor. A little red light at the bottom of the lens blinking with each second. No noise filled the air, all we heard was each other's breathing. And then it happened. We had reached the end of the hallway, and fortunately the door at the end had another pin code reader. I tried the pin from before, the one I saw them type in, but it was invalid. At that moment, the lights in the hallway shut off, and we heard the doors. God damn it, I can still hear them to this day. The fucking doors opened! All lining up along the corridor, they made a subtle creak and then a boom as they hit the wall beside with a force. As I said, after I entered the invalid code into the keypad, the lights shut off and the doors opened, except for the door with the keypad. We also noticed as doors opened, each doorway had a little bit of light seeping from its open pathway. We stood there, stunned, for a good 5 minutes. Not knowing what to do, we figured we'd tripped some kind of alarm, and this was just some weird protocol, a standard drill, if you will. In case of any kind of an attempted escape, what were we supposed to think? So we turned the other direction away from the locked door. A sense of panic hit all three of us for some reason, and we got this urge to run. No one agreed to running. It was like we all knew we had to at the same time. Some sort of instinct, like a baby gazelle knowing when to run from a lion. We were in a lion's den, huh? It wasn't until about 10 doors we passed that it was the 10th door actually that we had passed, that we began to look into the doorways as we passed them. Standing at the doorways were people in costume. We were running past Donalds, Mickeys, Goofies, Plutos, and all different kinds of Disney characters. It was insane, and we screamed at the top of our lungs. I know they say never look behind you as you run, but I did. They were leaving their rooms and following us, not running, just casually walking towards us. I think that is what made it that much more terrifying, almost like they knew we had nowhere to go. Now, I don't know if it was all in my head just from sheer panic and fear of the moment, but I could swear on my mother's life, I heard It's a Small World playing over an intercom. I have a fear of dolls, and the ride away, that ride always gave me the creeps my whole life. Now I could see them. The little robotic dolls standing in the doorways as we passed, still following were the costumed characters. The dolls weren't chasing us, thank God. I would have died from a heart attack if I had seen the dolls following suit. But they didn't. It didn't make the situation all that better. How many times have you been followed by a group of costumed individuals seemingly out to fucking eat you alive? At least that's what I had told myself to keep moving. Stopping meant being devoured by fucking Donald Duck. I don't know about you, but that is not a way I'd want to go out. Tim was crying, Guy was sweating and breathing heavily, and I just kept turning my head to see if we were being followed. And of course we were. I'm not sure how many doors we had passed at this point, or if there really were different characters at each door, but I knew that this hallway had to end at some point. We were getting the fuck out of this place pronto. And that's easier said than done. I looked back after another minute or two of running and noticed that there was nothing behind us anymore that we could see. I heard footsteps, but figured we had gotten so far ahead that they were just walking casually like before. The hallway was still going on for what seemed like forever, and Guy needed to stop or he was going to faint from exhaustion. The door behind us was open, with the light on, but nothing inside, really. I decided that we would hide in there, till we caught our breath and would continue onward. As we closed the door behind us, I noticed that the room was 1966. Again, that meant nothing at the time. Tim was pacing the room. Guy was laying on the floor, still breathing pretty hard, and I was at the window. Looking out, I saw nothing. No more music. No, nothing. It was dark out and hard to tell for sure, but I figured I would have seen figures, shadows, or something. Still, I kept watch. After 50 minutes or so, Guy said he was good to go. Tim was the only one smart enough to pull out his new Razor cell phone, no signal of course. He opened the door subtly, quietly, but heard no footsteps. Nothing was following us anymore, but we weren't taking chances. We got back to running. It only took us about 7 minutes to reach the door, give or take. It had no keypad and it was open. We entered the corridor from before, and thank God there were no doors. We ran for the elevator and got in, pushed the up button, and stood there, looking at each other, dumbfounded as to what had just happened. None of us spoke. We just waited till the elevator opened, back into Toontown, and started making our way for the front gate. We kept a low profile using the same duck and hide technique that had gotten us this far from the get-go. Maintenance workers and security guards were still about, but we couldn't take any more chances. Finally, Tim lost it and took off. In a sprint, I couldn't imagine what had set him off until I looked and saw that everyone in the park just stood there, staring at us with blank faces. We heard a voice over the intercom explaining that 3 fugitives had escaped from captivity and needed to be escorted back into the jails below. We booked it. Catching up to Tim, costume characters appeared from the shadows, workers and guards chasing after us. Everyone was sprinting for us. I couldn't see well, but I imagined drool dripping from their jowls. They wanted us back down there. We'd escaped, and they were pissed. The gate was just up ahead. The creepiest thing about it all was that besides the voice over the intercom, the park was dead silent. No chat from the workers could be heard even now. As we were running for what we assumed was our lives, from the characters, the workers, the guards, no one bothered to shout after us. No one yelled, no one said stop. Nothing. Just footsteps and the occasional cough from Guy. As we made it past the park's front gate, we didn't stop until we got to the parking lot. Our car was gone and we were left scratching our heads. We continued running down the road, which went on for miles, stopping occasionally for us to catch our breath. We made it to a little corner store where Tim used his cell to call a taxi cab, and when it finally arrived, we took the cab back to the hotel we were staying at, paid the fare, went up to our rooms. In the end, the next day, we got a call from the hotel's front desk, so we headed downstairs. There were officers waiting for us. They said our car had been impounded and we needed to pay the fine. They didn't ask us any other questions, and we didn't bother telling the police anything that happened. Even now, on the random island, people who don't have a reason to disbelieve me don't believe me. So how could an officer of the law be expected to? And we didn't bother. We simply paid the fine, and we drove home. We didn't talk about what happened the whole drive back. It wasn't until a couple of weeks later that I got myself to search up the numbers. Curiosity, I guess. As you all know, Walt Disney was born December 5th, 1901. The room we were in was 1901. The door next to it was 1205. Also, he died December 15, 1966, which was the key code the worker had put in to lead us into the main corridor. Strange coincidence. Whatever. Whether any of that is real at all, I couldn't tell you. Maybe our imaginations ran wild. I mean, we were tired. It was around 1 a.m. when we made our escape, so it's plausible that's the answer. I'll never forget it, though. I haven't even been back since. Boy, it's been a while since we've covered a Disney-related creepypasta, huh? In past experiences, almost every one of these have been a treat to read. Now, this overall is good, but it has points that need a little bit of an explanation, or I guess, well, let's just go analytically into it. Now, let's take it from a step-by-step perspective. For example, you go and sneak into the park and hide there until you reach the end of the day and the gates close. Now, that's fine. I mean, Disney parks are huge, and it is quite possible that if you hide in some corner or some nook and cranny, then the gates will close and you might just get away with it. I mean, sure, there might be cameras around and people, and they did eventually get caught. I mean, it didn't last too long, but it is possible to stay past a park's closing time, and most times security may not even find you. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it happens. It's logical. Now, again, you have them catching you, and that's very logical. And then one thing gets mentioned that easily kind of kills whatever kind of believability you may be building up is when you mention the Disney prison. Sure, it's creepy, but correct me. And please correct me if I'm wrong. How the fuck can they take you into a prison? You don't go there. You asked to be kicked out. I mean, if anybody mentioned they were going to take me to a privatized prison, I'd ask to be kicked out, or at least have the cops come kick you out. I mean, you don't want to go there. You don't know what's going to happen to you. But then, okay, whatever, let's go along with it again. As the protagonist says, you wouldn't know what to do in this situation, would you? So then you go to the underground ward, and here it's very anticlimactic. Our protagonists get locked up, and then they go out of this unlocked prison and have this really quick something chase down this hallway where the really scary thing is just these costume Mickeys and Donald Ducks and everyone on the side and just dolls chasing you, and that's about it. That's really where the whole scares, the intensity boils down to. And then the escape when you go above ground is really easy, might I add. There's nobody hunting you down, there's no chases, there's no real weird imagery, or there's no rationale. It's just, well, we went to this underground ward, we got chased, and then we ended up getting out of here, we went to our hotels, and little did you know, we drove back, and that was about it. Which was weird. It's like, it just came and went by so quick. Now, of course, the line where we mentioned the new Motorola Razr, which is a cell phone, it was before the age of smartphones, rather. You can tell this was in 2003, 2004, because back in the day, my dad actually owned a Motorola Razr, and I remember he got it brand new, and that was about the time when he got the Motorola Razr. It's quite a while back, so maybe I thought they might have been very young, but then you get to the end, where they mention that they're driving across state lines, and then you realize they're pretty old enough to have some kind of a common sense and probably not end up going to a prison, if you will, that just gets thrown out there. Despite analytically breaking down everything here and seeing flaws throughout, this still actually holds up in a pretty good fashion. I guess it's the personal touch to the writing that keeps you enthralled. I don't know, it keeps its cool, it guides you all the way through, and hey, I was genuinely entertained as I read through it, and I didn't feel at any moment that this was throwing me away. Sure, after in the analysis phase, when I look at these creepypastas, when I really break it down, that's when I realize there's parts of this that make no sense, but overall, the actual piece is pretty decent. Whether Disney has catacombs, they don't. Let's be honest here, okay? It's a theme park, not a secret experimentation facility, alright? Let's get that out of the way. They're just theme parks. I don't really think they have catacombs to them, or hidden cities, I guess you could say. But that being said, if you like what you saw in this video, if you enjoyed the creepypasta rather, please tell me what you think about it. Please give it a rating, and let me know what you would change. That's what I always ask you. And let me know if you think Disney has weird conspiracies under their parks. Let me know in the comments below. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. This has been another episode of Creepypastas, part of Haunted Gaming. I am out.